What's going on, everybody? Appreciate all of you guys tuning in to today's edition of the Jets Report by Chat Sports. And coming up, I want to dive into all of the quarterback targets that you guys could potentially see for the New York Jets this offseason. We're going to be attacking the NFL draft, the free agency market, and then also the trade market coming up on today's show. But if you guys could hit that subscribe button today, we are closing in here on 12,000 subs on YouTube, and we are just 140 subscribers away. So if you guys are brand new here, want to stay up to date on everything around your New York Jets, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Daily videos, breaking news, we got it all covered. So hit that subscribe button today, and I promise you, there are 140 people watching today's show that aren't subscribed. So change it and subscribe today. Now, we'll say here quickly on the draft front at the quarterback position here for the New York Jets, I would rather prefer the Jets land a veteran option instead of drafting a quarterback. And I think the Jets brass would probably agree with that. We'll dive into my thoughts more fully here in just a second. But just off the front, just want to say I think the Jets, with where they are right now, I don't think they're ready for a rookie quarterback. I would rather have them go land a potential veteran than drafting a guy in the early rounds. But there are some more options out there in the draft. Now, Mel Kiper, in his recent mock draft, actually had the New York Jets taking Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson with the 16th overall selection in the first round. I'm maybe in the minority here. I'm not the biggest Ty Simpson fan. I think this would just be a waste of a draft pick for the New York Jets. Now, yes, he could very well turn out to be a solid starter in the NFL, but I think with how many holes the Jets have on this team, I would rather have them spend that premium draft pick where that's still a top 16 selection. Go get a dog defensively. If you do want to take a receiver, go take a receiver instead of a quarterback. So round one, absolutely off the table. Now, round two, potentially for the New York Jets, Trinidad Chambliss. I got mixed thoughts on Trinidad because he's a hell of a college quarterback. He was a lot of fun to watch in the college football playoff. He has escapability. He's got that backyard football type of play where he could be an intriguing player. But I just think with where the Jets are at, kind of similar to what I was saying on Ty Simpson, you got 4 picks in the top 45. Just use all 4 of those picks on getting truly good starters at other premium positions on the team. But could you imagine if we're leaving the draft after day 2 and we're like, man, the Jets spent both their first-round picks on defense, both their second-round picks on defense. We're looking at that side of the football, and we're saying to ourselves, that should be a top 15 unit in the league. That is not off the table if you would head in that direction. So I would probably say no on Trinidad in round 2, and then you got another polarizing guy, Drew Allar. Drew Allar could end up going in the 6th round. Drew Allar could end up going in the 2nd round. I really have no idea. I think he is going to be a guy where maybe his pro day, he's fantastic. TBD if he'll even perform in that pro day coming off that major injury this past year. But again, Drew Allar, I just think he's, if let's just say the Los Angeles Rams took Drew Allar with Sean McVay and that infrastructure, I'll maybe believe in him a little more. But with the New York Jets, I would say no. And I'll probably say no as well to Carson Beck. Apparently reports out there that guys in the NFL don't really trust him as a leader of an organization. And we've talked about the Jets at the quarterback spot. I want them to go get a leader. So I would say no on Carson Beck. And then Garrett Nussmeier, there was reports about this guy potentially being the number 1 pick before the season. But he just looked old this past year at LSU. He can't really move too well. The injuries definitely caught up to him. Now, the intangibles are there with him. He seems like he would be a good leader, but I just don't really think it makes too much sense for the New York Jets. Now, I will say, if you are in the camp of maybe the Jets taking a Ty Simpson or taking a Trinidad Chambliss, and maybe you are also saying, yeah, Patrick, I agree with you. Those guys would not be ready to start year 1, but year 2 they could be ready. Well, if you do that, then that probably means you aren't going to take a quarterback in the 2027 draft, and that draft class looks a lot better at the QB spot than the 2026 draft. So that could also be an issue where if you take a Trinidad Chambliss in round 2 and you go get a veteran quarterback, so Trinidad sits on the bench, then you probably aren't going to be taking a quarterback high up in round 1 next season. And also with Aaron Glenn, we all know he's on the hot seat, and I think it's probably more likely he ends up getting fired at the end of this season than retaining his job. So would he want to draft a young quarterback? Because I don't think he would take a young quarterback. It's like, oh, we're going to have Glenn and this young quarterback. They're going to be the future head coach quarterback combo of this franchise. Probably not going to be the case. And then also we have seen guys like Gerard Mayo, guys like Matt Eberflus, where you have these defensive-minded head coaches take a rookie quarterback, ends up not going well. They end up getting fired because then you want to go get that offensive-minded guy, the year after. So I think Glenn, he would probably say no. But again, does Glenn have that much say in the Jets drafting quarterback? Who the hell knows? But if you guys do want them to draft a quarterback, let me know that prospect's name down below in the comments section. Name a QB you want the Jets to draft this upcoming draft here in Pittsburgh. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. All right, so I just got all the Jets or all the QB free agent targets out there. I did not include Aaron Rodgers on this list for obvious reasons. But you got a guy like Russell Wilson out there, no interest there. Marcus Mariota, I would have some interest bringing him to New York. He could be a solid veteran option. Now, I don't think Mariota would be a full 17-game starter, for example. I think maybe he would be a guy, if you do draft a quarterback, bring in Mariota. He starts for the first month or two. Then you turn it over to that young kid. Zach Wilson, not much needs to be said there. Probably not an option. Joe Flacco, kind of in the bucket of Mariota. Kenny Pickett, probably a good backup option. Then we got a bunch of backups here on this next list, like a Jimmy Garoppolo, a Mitch Trubisky, a Case Keenum, a Trey Lance, and Carson Wentz. Now, all of these guys, like let's just say the Jets go out there and maybe trade for a quarterback that we'll talk about here in a second. Maybe these guys could be some high-end backups. Also, you could also just bring back Tyrod Taylor as well, which I would prefer Tyrod over all of these guys. Trey Lance could be exciting, but Trey Lance is just he's just not that good at the quarterback position in the NFL. Now, the hottest option out there is a guy like Malik Willis. Now, I think Malik Willis will probably be playing for AFC East rival, the Miami Dolphins, next season, and he'll probably get a pretty hefty payday. So I don't know if the Jets are in a position where they're like, hey, I'm going to give this guy a 2-year, $50 million deal. I can't see that being the case. But Josh Johnson, no. Brandon Allen, no. Kyle Allen, no. Teddy Bridgewater, solid backup. Wouldn't really consider him high-end anymore at this point in his football playing career, but he could be another choice. Now, one name on this next list that maybe could be a 17-game starter for the Jets, again, this wouldn't be ideal, would be Gardner Minshew. I don't know. I think the Jets could do better than that. Maybe Gardner's like the, hey, break glass in case of emergency type of quarterback. Brett Rypien, more of a third-stringer practice squad guy. Tommy DeVito, practice squad guy. Sam Howell, third-stringer practice squad. Jake Browning, a decent backup, but nothing crazy. But Gardner Minshew, probably my top choice out of all these free agent options because I could see him potentially being a 17-game starter, learned from Patrick Mahomes this past season. Had a good year previously with the Indianapolis Colts. But again, no solid options there in free agency. So if you guys could, hit that thumbs up icon, though. We'll get to some trade targets here in a second. But our bosses challenged us to get 300 likes on today's show. So if you guys want to make me look good, hit that thumbs up icon. Or if you guys want the Jets to finally find that quarterback, go down there, hit that thumbs up icon. Now, we'll get to the trade options here in a second, but today's show is brought to you guys by PrizePicks, and the big game is almost here. And there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than PrizePicks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, and that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season outright with PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups after you pay your first $5. You guys can find your community on PrizePicks. With the new social feeds feature, you can share PrizePicks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow PrizePicks partners like us and tail or fade our picks with just one click. PrizePicks now has a new feature called early payouts. So if your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. So download the PrizePicks app today. Plug in promo code CLNS, get hooked up with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. But shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's show. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Now, I think if I had to call my shot, I think the Jets are more likely to trade for a quarterback than sign a guy or draft a guy to be their starter. And the first option we'll talk about here is Kyler Murray. Now, I think this could be a simple Jets trade back from 2 to 3. They get Kyler Murray. Maybe the Jets have to attach a 4th-round pick or a 5th-round pick to sweeten the deal. I know a lot of you guys aren't a fan of Kyler Murray. I would have some interest there. I think Kyler's got a lot of talent. Obviously, he hasn't been going well here with the Arizona Cardinals. But again, he would be just a quarterback that would raise the floor of this offense a whole lot more than what we've seen over the past season. Now, we had to include Kirk Cousins in a trade target that could on today's show, but he very well could be cut. I think it's honestly leaning towards that there in Atlanta. And Kirk, I will say it, this entire offseason, he would be my favorite to be the Jets quarterback next season. A solid guy. He could start for all 17 games. He could man the ship. And also a guy with Kirk. And something that was so frustrating with the Jets this past season, you couldn't really evaluate other guys offensively. You couldn't evaluate an offensive coordinator like Tanner Engstrad. Well, if you would bring in Kirk Cousins, you would get a good look at a guy like A.D. Mitchell, a good look at a guy like Mason Taylor. You would be able to evaluate your offensive coordinator and Tanner Engstrad. So I would have some interest in Kirk Cousins. Same can kind of be said about Geno Smith. I just think Geno Smith just might be done in the NFL. Like, he is just so bad at this point of his career, and he very well could be cut. And also, is he going to come back to the New York Jets? Probably not. Now, an interesting option here. How about a little Anthony Richardson? I have not talked about Anthony Richardson too much on the channel. I am a huge Anthony Richardson guy, probably for the wrong reasons. I just think he's got a lot of potential still. He was a 4th overall pick for a reason. Now, he's more likely going to end up probably being like Trey Lance than ending up being like a serviceable starter in the National Football League. But if you want to take a flyer on a guy for a 5th, 6th round pick, Anthony Richardson could be a solid choice. Also, Mac Jones could be a solid choice as well. John Lynch said earlier this week that he expects Mac Jones to be on the Niners roster next season. But again, if you throw them like the 45th overall pick in the draft or 44th overall pick, like, you could easily pry him from the San Francisco 49ers. So those are all the Jets quarterback options. You guys let me know, though, who would be QB1 for the Jets next season? Drop that quarterback's name down below in the comment section. And we'll get on out of here. As always, go Jets.